everyone, and welcome to the show. This is episode number 44 of Pop Culturally Deprived, and today we're going to be talking about Oscar on your Sorry Boss podcast. I'm Mandi Kay.
And I'm Matthew Vose.
And this week we're joined by Carrie, who, as soon as we mentioned Oscar many episodes ago, sent us messages that she'd forgotten it exists but loved the film. So welcome to the show, Carrie.
Hi, thanks.
Why? Can you give us some of the background? Why was Oscar such a standout when we mentioned it?
It just kind of hit me like a bomb. Like, oh my God, I forgot this movie that I used to watch probably maybe 6 times a year, in the 90s, because every Friday night we would go to Blockbuster or whatever it was called at the time. And when we couldn't decide what to watch, we'll watch Oscar again. It makes us laugh.
Okay.
So that was it. And I think... so we had a dog that we got, I can't even remember when we got it, but when we were trying to decide what to name it, I think we were thinking of this movie a little bit because we called him Oscar.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
I can't remember the first time I saw it, but it's one of those, I was flicking around the television on a Saturday afternoon and this was on. And it was just so charming, I left it on, oh, this is quite good fun. And then it just got better as it went on. I had to go and grab my mum, what's this? It's our sort of film.
Yeah, I think it's just a movie to watch when you are sitting around and want something to entertain you and make you laugh.
But I was absolutely amazed because I don't think I've met anyone else who's seen it. So when you started saying, oh yeah, I love that film. It's really? Someone else has heard of this?
I was sitting around this morning thinking, so who else besides the three of us has seen this movie now? So I hope more people actually go out and watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mandi, how come you've never seen it?
You can't watch something you don't know exists.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. I've never heard of this movie before you started talking about it, and then Carrie jumped in. Completely foreign to me. Had no idea. And even looking it up, I actually tried not to look it up before I went in, and so I had no idea what it was about, and it was just baffling to me that this exists.
Okay, well, I'll give us a bit of background for basically everyone who listens to this who's never seen this film. Oscar is a 1991 comedy farce by John Landis, starring Sylvester Stallone, in one of his attempts at a non-action movie. The following year, he would release Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. It is based on a 1967 French film of the same name, which itself is based on a play of the same name. In France, this version of Oscar was released as L'embrouille est dans le sac, the muddle is in the bag. Oscar performed poorly with critics and audiences. It opened as the #1 movie of the week on its release. It stayed there for the second week, and then on its third week was displaced by FX2. Eventually, in the US, it made $23 million, but had a budget of $35 million. The film was nominated for 3 Razzies at the Golden Raspberry Awards: Worst Actor for Sylvester Stallone, Worst Director for John Landis, and Worst Actress in a Supporting Role for Marissa Tomei. It didn't even win all 3 of them. It lost to Kevin Costner for Robin Hood, Michael Lehman for Hudson Hawk, and Sean Young for A Kiss Before Dying. Sean Young was also nominated for Worst Actress, as well as the Supporting Actress, because she played twins.
No, I'm sitting here thinking, we're worried about people not knowing Oscar, but these are all movies I have absolutely no idea about. So I don't know what I'm worried about.
Hudson Hawk, I've never seen it, but I saw an interview with Richard E. Grant once, who I think is the villain. And he was talking about how he's done this whole range of films. And he once said, there are people who come up to me and say they love Hudson Hawk and it's the most memorable of the films that I've done. So there is a film out there for everyone.
Okay. Yeah, out of those 3 you just mentioned, the only one I've heard of is Robin Hood, and I haven't even seen it. So, all right. Well, since nobody out there knows what this movie is about, because nobody has seen it, after making a deathbed promise to his father, gangster Angelo Snaps Provolone tries really hard to go straight, even though the universe conspires against him through family hijinks.
Is that a Mandi synopsis, an IMDb synopsis?
That is a Mandi synopsis.
Nice.
I have to applaud your getting that in 2 lines. Because
I had to think about it for a little while, but
yeah.
I mean, that's the essence of the movie, really. I was trying to explain it to someone last night, and I was like, I don't know how to do this. And I wish I had had this document in front of me because I had already done it.
Were you able to find it to watch anywhere in the States?
The Amazon channel for Cinemax has it on demand, and so I was able to do the 7-day free trial so I could stream it that way.
Useful. Carrie, do you own this? Is this a favourite on your shelves?
Newly, because I had completely forgotten it before, as we've discussed. But yes, this summer I found it on Amazon, and it was ridiculously cheap.
Oh.
As the UK import. I don't know why it was so inexpensive. It was like, I think I paid with shipping maybe €6. So
worth it.
Yeah, I got that right quick. and it's on YouTube. I don't know if you can get it, like at least in Germany, you can get it on YouTube. I don't know if it's available
I didn't even
elsewhere.
think to check there.
I found it by accident there because I think I was trying to find the old film, the 1967 version. I wanted to see if I could see any of that, but this one popped up. So,
for the finest and high quality movie rips, go to YouTube.
Yes.
I looked for the original as well, but I couldn't find one with subtitles or a dub, and my French is not that good.
I found a scene in German that I could at least understand, but other than that,
it does actually appear to be available on YouTube in the United States.
Yay, people will watch it.
Go buy it. Maybe they'll make a sequel. I own this one, but I have it on Region 1 DVD because it was just one of those things that I saw one day in the States and remembered exactly like you said. This is a great film. I love it. And I've never seen it available anywhere before. So I picked it up in the States, which I now don't think I have any way of watching it, but I do have, I ripped all my DVDs a while ago. So I have the MP4 of it as well.
That's smart. Otherwise, I would say you have to have a DVD player somewhere that you never let update or touch firmware anything.
I have one somewhere. I have no idea where it is. It'll be in a cupboard or a loft somewhere. So, Mandi, I gave you a little bit of a heads up on this film. I think after we spoke about Clue, you said it would actually be quite good to know some of the style of a film going into it if it's going to be unexpected. So what were your expectations for it?
Honestly, I had forgotten everything we'd ever talked about this movie going into it. I remembered that it was supposed to be a comedy, that it was like some sort of parody type thing. And then once it got started, I remembered that it came up because of The Godfather. And so then I was kind of getting an idea of what was happening. But when it started, my thoughts were just, I have no idea what this movie is about. I was just told to watch it, so I'm doing as I'm told. So no expectations whatsoever.
I said up front that it's directed by John Landis. It's got Sylvester Stallone in the main part. What's your experience of them and then this wonderful supporting cast that it has?
When I saw the name John Landis, I was thinking, that name is really familiar. I know I've seen it before. We've talked about him on the show before. And so it took me a little while to figure it out, but he wrote Clue, and that is the only thing I know him from. And that makes total sense when you kind of think about those two movies side by side. Sylvester Stallone is obviously the big name here, and again, he's more of a general awareness for me. Like, I've never seen Rocky or Rambo, but I'm just familiar with them as pop culture. I have seen Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, but I don't remember anything about it. And I think Demolition Man is probably the thing that I've actually seen that I would recognize that he was in. Although he recently did do a guest spot as himself in the new show This Is Us.
Okay.
It was kind of cool to see him now on TV. Marissa Tomei, obviously, I think everybody knows who she is. At least I hope everybody knows who she is. My Cousin Vinny, and I know I've seen her in other stuff. I just can't remember. Oh, she's Aunt May in the new Spider-Man, isn't she? Which I haven't seen yet, but I've seen the trailer.
Yes, and age-appropriate, Aunt May.
And then out of all of the supporting cast, there were a few people who looked familiar. Some of them I was familiar with their faces, but when I looked them up, I had no idea who they were. But one of the bankers was played by Mark Metcalf, whose name I did recognize automatically because he did play the Master on Buffy.
Yes.
Although he was unrecognizable. Like, looking at his picture, I would not have known that it was him if I hadn't seen his name with it.
Yeah, there's a slight intonation to one of his lines that you go, oh, yeah, I can just about hear it, but it's a very different style, and he doesn't have those prosthetic teeth in.
Right, he doesn't have fruit punch mouth in Oscar.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was going to say there's one moment towards the end when he's being photographed when the police and the press storm in, and he does some movement where he's like kind of shrinking back in the chair, and for some reason that reminded me of the Master. I don't know why, but I just thought, okay, there I see it. It was the way he moved his body or something. I could see him shrinking before the Slayer.
Right.
I always ask, what's your experience of similar material to this? What's your experience of material that's similar to this?
I'm not sure that there is anything similar to this. The closest thing I could think of was that this is like a weird cross between The Godfather and Clue.
Yeah, that's probably pretty fair.
Yeah, that's all I got, and I mean, it's not entirely accurate. That's just kind of how it feels. But other than that, I think this movie is kind of a one-of-a-kind experience.
Yeah,
that sounds like a good description.
It is. I can feel a bit of the European influence on it in the way it's this farce about just bags moving around or mistaken identities, this kind of thing. It's a very old style of film. You can very much feel where its origins are. So, you've now seen this film that you've never heard of, that you did as you were told and watched. Did you enjoy Oscar?
Surprisingly, I did. I was a little bit concerned at first. I was watching this movie thinking, oh my God, I would never choose to watch this movie. This is terrible. Why am I doing this to myself? And then as the more it played, like the more engrossed I got into it, and I got super invested in all of the characters, and I was like shouting at them. Like you can see in my thoughts doc, increasingly all of my thoughts are in all caps because I was shouting at them, just open the bag, look in the bag. So yeah, I did enjoy it. It was funny, and I appreciated it.
Yeah, I think it's, like I said when I first watched it, it's utterly charming. Because there's no one who's unlikable. No one's necessarily good, but you are kind of rooting for everyone in this film.
Except for the bankers.
Yes.
and what's his face? The orange guy. It was kind of orange. Vanetti? The gangster who's getting his nails done in the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But he's so incidental, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, his moments, and then with Toby on the police as well, it's almost like having, when we said in Little Shop of Horrors, it's like having a Greek chorus, sort of commentating on everything that's going on stage.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think this is why, because I said, I'll just, watching this movie, it feels like you're watching a stage play, like you could be in an audience, and I feel like these little, I don't know, like these side shots of like Toomey and the police watching them and commenting on it. And then also the stuff with Vanetti, which I don't know, it's only like, 3 or 4 times throughout the film. But you could also like almost like picture if you're watching a stage, like suddenly the light cuts out on the main bit and just goes to a corner.
Yeah.
Where people are sitting there, and then suddenly like the people there are talking, and then we're just back in the main action, like back in the house. And it just, it feels like, it also probably feels like that because it's all shot on this one, like, very obvious soundstage studio, which is also utterly charming. So it doesn't detract from the movie at all. Like, you're not supposed to believe this is really New York and everything's the set and it's fine.
Yeah, it absolutely feels like it is one contiguous set, all the rooms off it. And the rooms are probably built separately, I think, particularly his office and the atrium. But you can sort of feel how it moves through, and the going up and down stairs constantly with that centerpiece.
Yeah, you have a real sense of like the space, and it doesn't. It's almost like the house is part of the play in the same way that the characters are, or the. But yeah, it adds to it, I think.
Yeah, it becomes really important as it goes through, knowing who is in which room as he's trying to set things up and move people around to meet each other. But you have a really good sense of that. One quick side point: the lady doing his nails at the beginning is Arlene Sorkin, who is
she a Sorkin?
I'm not sure if she's a Sorkin in terms of Aaron Sorkin, but she's the original Harley Quinn from Batman: The Animated Adventures. I just heard the voice. I'm like, wait, I know that voice from somewhere. But it was a certain amount of dissonance, and did not expect to see it here.
It all comes, and she does such that baby, that kind of, I don't know, I guess it's a voice that I associate with like this time, like the 1920s, 30s, this kind of baby, if I talk like a baby, I'll sound sexy voice.
Yes, yeah.
Which I also just saw in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. So like I was thinking of that too. Yeah, where when you're trying to sound like a ingenue, I guess, or something.
Yeah, like Audrey in Little Shop of Horrors, who does it all the way through, but has this incredible strong singing voice. A general question then, Sylvester Stallone as our comedy lead, as a gangster, not necessarily in the Don Corleone style, but head of an extortion and bootlegging racket. Do we buy that? Did it work? Should he have done comedy instead of action all these years?
I buy him as the gangster. I don't so much buy him as in the comedy role, although I really enjoyed watching it. He had moments, I think, that were just extraordinary, and other moments where it just kind of felt wrong. It's kind of unsettling, I think, throughout the whole movie. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure that anybody else could have pulled the role off the way that he did.
He really has quite a presence. And the whole snaps thing with him clicking at people to get them to do things, you know that he's in charge and the boss and he knows what's going on. But it also feels a little small time. The 50,000, it doesn't feel like a huge amount to be worrying about for someone who's got this fairly opulent house and running whole systems. Perhaps that's a modern take on what in the 1930s was probably a lot of money.
Yeah. That's what I was wondering about, but I haven't done the calculations to find out what $50,000 in I guess not too long after the stock market crash. What that is in
true.
today's.
I imagine that was a significant amount of money.
Yeah, I mean you get the whole feeling of the disintegrating economy in the background, and also like the coming 30s fascism, like this is all kind of playing in the background, which I thought was really actually interesting, seeing that again and picking up on it. But because they open like that first shot after the prologue, and they open on the shot of this newspaper, which basically says like 4 million unemployed or something like that. And so they're very clearly setting it in this time, and then the fact that he's even that bankers are even considering working with him.
Oh yeah, because they need his
also
money.
Kind of shines a light on that. Exactly. Like they hate that they're working with him almost as much as he hates that he's even considering working with them. But he's doing it for his dad, and they're doing it because they're trying to stave off the bank's collapse, I guess. So.
Okay, I'm going to try to get a little bit deep into the plot here. If he's supposed to be going straight, he's not going straight by setting up a business that employs people that does things. He's giving money to a bank to legitimize the operation. Is that what that is? Forgive me for not knowing the US economy at the time, but why the bank? Why was that the thing he went to do?
Probably. I mean, I don't know exactly myself, but I can imagine trying to set up... It's probably because it's the easiest thing that he can do. And also there's a certain bit of respect. Like, I think he sees a certain bit of respectability in it, which also plays into this whole thing where he's trying to work with Poole to improve his elocution and his grammar and his vocabulary, because he wants to sound like a banker. So he's aware the whole time that he doesn't sound like a banker, and he's trying to make everybody else sound like a banker too.
Yeah.
Which that's the whole reason for having Tim Curry there, which I think is absolutely hilarious. But it's a really interesting, I think it's just because it's the easiest way for him to become respectable in the eyes of his dad for whatever reason.
Right, I think.
And also maybe because the economy is crumbling, so you can't get something actually productive going so easily. Go ahead,
well,
sorry.
I think it's the difference between... If he sets up a business himself, even if it's perfectly respectable and productive, and he is able to make money in this economy, he's not validated by anybody because it would be him doing it. And by becoming a banker, by giving the bank the money, getting the vote on the board that he wanted, that means the bankers are kind of validating his respectability and the fact that he's not a gangster anymore. I think that's why that vote on the board was so important to him and why he wouldn't sign the contract with that provision in there that he wouldn't have a vote. Because he wanted, to use the word that you used, Matthew, he wanted them to legitimize him.
Right. It's not just the Enterprise, it's his past transgressions and work.
Yeah.
Okay.
He sees it as a way of going to the light side, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is, it's okay that he fails in the end.
Yeah, because they do set it very much up as the bankers are actually as bad as anything else, so why not provide liquor that makes people happy?
Yeah, basically. No, it's for yacht christenings.
So you mentioned what is one of the big cameos in this. It might well have been the thing that left me on watching this film. Do I mean cameo? Supporting roles. Tim Curry coming in as Dr. Paul. Mandi, can I just ask your reaction when Tim Curry showed up on screen?
I think my jaw might have dropped a little bit. I was expecting him to come in because I had seen his name. But this is a role completely unlike any other role I've ever seen Tim Curry play. I guess it is closest to the butler in Clue, but like dialed up to like 25. And just the vocal inflection and his facial expressions and just the way that he carried himself, it was utterly ridiculous, but I loved watching it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look up because I was going to make a comment about what he did before this. I think it was It. And I was just...
If that was 1990, because this was 1991, so...
That actually wouldn't surprise me because one of the things I noticed in this movie, and it may be because we just watched It.
Watch it.
And the funny thing is when we talked about It, I had said that I didn't see Tim Curry in Pennywise's face. But in this movie, watching Tim Curry, I saw Pennywise in Tim Curry's face. With the way that he smiled, like that smile was creepy and unsettling and gigantic.
Hiya, Georgie. Yes, he did It, and then he probably went straight into filming in this, because he does not look his best for part of the filming. He looks a very tired chap, so I can imagine... We said on the episode that he didn't like doing the makeup. Perhaps it took more of a toll, and that's why he's never returned to it.
Maybe. I just assumed that was part of the character, because the character was meant to be this, like, run-down, lonely, grown man who still lives with his mama.
Mm-hmm.
So I just accepted it as part of the character.
And then he's, like, dropped into this house with the... I don't know, where they keep trying to give him underwear.
Here's money, and here's money.
Here's a fresh $20 bill.
As much as he seems to be, like, on the one hand, he's dropped into this house and he seems to be noticing how crazy everyone around him is acting, and he has no idea what's going on. Like, it's like they're just two ships passing in the night, and none of them know what to do with the other. Like, he doesn't know what to do with them, and they don't know what to do with him. Because that moment when they're all arguing downstairs with the priest, and then they say his name, and he, like, pops his head over the balcony or whatever that is, and says, "Hello, get back in the room."
Hello.
And they're like, "Go away."
Oh, it's so good. Because he's got such a big grin.
Yes.
And it's strange because it sounds like Frankenfurter, but obviously doesn't look like Frankenfurter.
Yeah. And he's just like, and he brings so much energy to that moment. And then the other times he's just kind of like, oh God, I can't wait to get out of this house. Like,
until he meets Lisa.
Until he meets Lisa. And then he's like, no, you need to get out of this house too.
Just his
like, please come with me. Let me.
His physical reactions to the way that she said his name creep me out.
Lisa, at the risk of being forward.
Yes, Thornton?
Your diction is surprisingly good, considering your genealogy.
That's the sweetest thing anybody's ever said to me. Thornton.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yep. And that when she calls him baby, and he's like, baby.
Baby.
Matthew, how long have you been working on your Tim Curry impersonation?
Since I first saw this film.
It's what kicked it off for you.
Basically, yeah. I'm not sure if I'd already seen it and Rocky Horror by this point, but this is one of the films that I think of Tim Curry from.
Okay.
So this might be the first time I saw him in something.
I'm pretty sure this is the first time I saw him in anything. Maybe I saw Clue before it, but I don't think Clue wasn't one that we watched 6 times a year, so
yeah.
I'm not...
I can remember seeing him in Congo, but that's a slightly different role for him as more of a villain.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps later. You mentioned people trying to give him money there. We've not really mentioned the bags, the muddle in the bags, and so for anyone listening who's not seen this, probably about half the film is made up of 3 bags being interchanged, one of which has $50,000 dollar bills in it, one of which has 50,000 in jewels in it, and one of which has dirty underwear in it. Ladies' dirty underwear.
They might be clean. You don't know.
It has lingerie in it. Okay.
She hasn't bothered folding anything, so...
Which, as Mandi said at the beginning, always the same, so you don't know which is which, and they're all in the same style of bag, so there is a whole muddle over which bag is where. For something that makes up such a big part of the film, I always feel it comes to nothing. It means nothing in the end, because that's not what everyone's happy about, getting the bags or getting off with the right things. It's almost forgotten, and they move on from it. I feel like the film would be better without it, but also would be less farcical.
Well,
Yeah, I think you need something to have that utter absurdity. I don't know what it could be, besides, because I saw that question from you in the notes, and I was thinking about it, but I honestly don't know what it would be, because I mean, it could be anything. It almost doesn't matter.
I mean, I like the bags because I like the story that we got because of the bags. Honestly, I mean, we wouldn't have had the whole Lisa Teresa thing with Anthony bringing in all this money, and
How did you say 50 grand or 400 a month? I stole it from you.
that was pretty great. And so I really liked it, but I was disappointed when we got to the end, and it turned out the end game of the movie was the wedding, not the money.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, like, I have no idea what happened to any of the money. I mean, I know one of the bags, I think, did end up with Nora and Bruce Underwood, but the other 2, I have no idea.
So I watched it again this afternoon, and I think I figured out that the Underwoods walked out of this $100,000 richer.
Oh,
So
really?
they had both of them.
I think both bags ended up at the Underwoods. And now that I've said that, I can't track why.
Oh,
But I'm
no,
pretty
I think
sure
you're
that's what
right,
I
though,
noticed.
because the chauffeur shows up
Yeah.
and they switch the bags. So he gets one of them then. And Nora doesn't know that. And Nora comes back and switches the other 2
Yes.
bags.
And she just kind of sneaks in, and I don't think anybody sees her.
Right. Yeah, she sees
I
it
think
on
she just kind of
the
walks
counter.
on
Yeah.
in. Mm-hmm. What's important, though, is that the underwear is there to dump for Toomey to dump out on the table.
Yes.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
That was fantastic.
Yeah, and I almost, if that's the end point, because I don't think I'd ever tracked it to see exactly what happens to them. I would have liked the line of, well, the millionaire's 100,000 richer, but we've got a family, so hooray.
Yeah, and the press can tell Toomey what it's all come out in the wash.
Yeah.
Like, it's all about the puns.
Right. I think, though, that for Snaps, it doesn't matter because we end with him going back to his life of crime. And in that life, $100,000 is nothing to him. So he didn't care that it was missing.
He's gonna go back to selling all the beer that he needs to sell, and it's gonna be fine.
I mean, because at the end of the day, it was $100,000 he didn't even know he had.
Exactly.
since Anthony had stolen it from him. And so I think from that perspective, that's probably why they thought it wasn't important to show where the money ended up. But it was from the perspective of the audience, we were so invested in these bags and who got the money and where the bags went that it would have been nice to see a payoff on that.
But I think in the end, it also only matters as long as the characters are trying to, as long as they're invested in getting that money. But it wasn't, Snaps didn't want the money for the money's sake. He wanted it because he didn't want to be screwed over by his accountant, who's going to marry his daughter, who's not his daughter.
Who was his daughter.
Who was his daughter.
Lisa?
No, dear, not Lisa. The other one.
What other one?
You know, the other one. The other one that's not Lisa.
Who's Teresa? Yeah.
And so I think, like, as soon as, and that's, I think, why, like, what Matthew was just saying, as soon as he doesn't care about the money anymore, neither do we, in a way, unless we've watched it 5 times in the last 6 months.
Yeah, how many times have you watched it in the build-up to this?
Actually, only 3. So I watched it, I think...
oh, that's fine.
Only 3.
Only 3.
You sacrificed Stranger Things 2 for Oscar.
Yeah, well, that's coming. Both the 31st and the 1st are holidays here this year. So,
oh, nice.
So I think that I'll be watching Stranger Things over.
The other thing that we've not mentioned, which people might be listening going, so why is it called Oscar? Because there is a character called Oscar who you would expect to be really important, but I think we've gone as long on this podcast without mentioning Oscar as they go in this film without mentioning Oscar.
Actually, almost, because they mentioned Oscar's name for the first time at the 39-minute mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so strange. It makes me wonder if the original he's more to do in the play, that he's not run off to war or something.
I don't think so, because I went and looked this up on the Wikipedia synopses of that movie, and also I tried to look in the play too, but I didn't see it in the play version. But it basically, he sounds as unimportant in that version as in this version, except in that version he doesn't join the army, he joins a polar expedition. So that he'll be gone for 6 years. 6 years is the same.
Okay. I think Oscar is just like the bags. You know, he is driving plot without actually being there, because if it weren't for Oscar, we wouldn't have had the whole Lisa pregnancy story that led to more money and then Dr. Poole and eventually a wedding. And so I think that's... They were trying to be clever, maybe, with naming it Oscar.
Mm-hmm. I feel like this might be, Matthew was saying before, how this all feels very kind of old school European comedy style. And I think the name might even play into that a little bit. Like I haven't really dug into it more enough to kind of give that argument some foundation. But I'm pretty sure this idea that you name, I feel like it's got some foundation in things that have come before, and kind of this European, like, mid-century comedy and farce. I'd have to look into it more to actually...
I tried to look up some stuff about this movie, and it's very difficult to look up a movie called Oscar because all you get are results about the Academy Awards.
It's the problem.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, okay, what other words can I put in here? Because even Oscar, Sylvester Stallone, the movie is not the first thing you get. You still get Academy Award results.
I think you have to do Oscar, Sylvester Stallone, movie 1991, and then you start to get there. But
yeah, it was frustrating. Probably not quite as frustrating as it, but it was difficult.
It is frustrating.
Oscar is frustrating.
Yes. That's what I meant.
Okay. I wasn't sure which. I wasn't sure which episode we were talking about.
We were talking about it
being Oscar and it.
Yeah.
We're talking about it.
Anyway.
Okay.
Enough of this silliness.
I really hope that everybody who's listening to this did listen to the It episode. Otherwise, this is not going to be funny.
Go and listen to it.
What?
Because it's mostly an hour of me making that joke.
It really kind of was. Okay, can we talk about something that's not funny?
Yes.
Please. That's all I ever want to talk about.
So in the scene where Snaps is confronting Lisa, because at this point he thinks that Anthony wants to marry Lisa. And she is going on and on about how she just needs to get out of this house and how she's not a little girl and she can take care of herself. She flashes her father.
And you brought nothing but shame to this family. Indecente!
Daddy, you have to realize I'm not a little girl anymore. Look!
Put that away! I'm your father!
Yeah,
She
gross.
flings open her robe and says, "Look." What? I don't know what to do with that. Why was that in this movie?
Europeans, very open about their bodies. Not so concerned, maybe. Maybe that's the joke from the original.
I have no idea. But yes, that moment is very disturbing.
It just felt super out of place.
She's not wearing much when he goes in the first place.
Yeah. She tries to like hide all this stuff. Like she's smoking and she's reading Lady Chatterley's Lover and she's listening to something that her father obviously doesn't approve of. And she hides all that away. And then her way to prove that she's an adult is to open her robe. Which is interesting. They're both wearing robes. Like no one is wearing like actual clothing here.
Yes, it is a very, very strange moment.
It's she's using her body as a weapon against her own father because she has no power in the situation and just wants to get out of her gilded cage.
Yeah, it's not as inappropriate as it could have been, but it is still very, very strange. And particularly because they don't lean on anything else like that in the rest of it.
Thank God.
Yeah, there's nothing else about sexiness or... Like, Clue had a number of jokes about men and women together. Mm-hmm. This film doesn't go there, by and large.
Except in this one
Except
scene.
for that one. And maybe the reference with him saying...
Rounded
you know, we're all,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're all, 1930s gentlemen. We're lovers.
Yeah. That kind of gross word where you're like, ew.
Yeah.
But that's how you tell people that's how you tell your boss, who's also the father of your would-be fiance, that you're sleeping with her. And why would you say, why?
Yeah, I couldn't really figure out Anthony's motivation for a lot of the things that he said, just because he was so bold. Like, I love your daughter. Well, the way it all unfolded, like, by the time we got to the point where Snaps had given him the raise, I immediately knew. Like, I just had a feeling. I was like, oh my gosh, he's talking about his daughter. And then he immediately turned around and said, okay, great. Can I have your daughter's hand in marriage?
Mr. Provolone, it is my honor to ask for your daughter's hand in matrimony.
Pardon me?
Yes, your daughter is the one I love.
My daughter? How do you know my daughter?
We met at Club 33.
In a speakeasy?
I was like, dude, this guy has got some, like, moxie to do that. And then throughout the rest of the movie, he just keeps going, well, where did you get this money? Well, I stole it from you. Well, where did you get this second money? I stole it from you. And he was a fun character, but he didn't make a lot of sense.
Kid's got a lot of moxie.
Yeah.
I liked his scheme for... I put down a nickel, but it should have been a dime, so I then had this extra bit of cash that I built up and built up and built up, that presumably would have taken quite a while to get there, that he didn't come forward with it and has accumulated some wealth from.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost the story of Superman 3 and Office Space. That's how they make money in those two as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it is Office Space. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think Office Space, they even point out that it's from Superman 3 at that point.
Okay.
There's not a huge amount to talk about in this film when we talk about the depth of something or the production or the themes and character development. This is just a charming and great film that I want to gush about.
Yeah.
Because it's just fun. So I'm going to open the floor to Carrie to open the dam.
Okay.
And gush about all the things you like.
Okay. Well, yeah, I have quite a few. I mean, where to start? Tim Curry, obviously, and Marissa Tomei, even though she kind of weirds you, she weirded Mandi out. She weirded me out a little bit too, but I still love watching her in this. I mean, I think I love watching her in anything. But there's just moments between, when she's not disrobing for her father, when she's kind of fighting with him and like giving it back to him. And there's just this these looks between them. And also when at some point she starts snapping as well. And it's like, okay, yes. she is his daughter. And I don't know, I like that chemistry. So that's, and then Ornella Moody, I have never seen her in anything else, but every time this woman is on the screen, it's like you can't take your eyes off of her. She's just luminous.
I have no idea what you're talking about. But if you love me, if you ever loved me, you'll find my little girl a husband!
I don't know, her intonation and the way she speaks and her facial reactions and everything, I just love her.
Yeah. I haven't seen her in anything else, but I always feel like I have done. I suspect it's because she's a bit like a Monica Bellucci or Isabella Rossellini, someone like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was sure that I had seen her in other things. She looked so familiar to me, but then I looked her up and I had never heard of her or seen her in anything else.
Yeah.
But she just has one of those faces that is so striking that you feel like you had to have seen it.
And when you realize you haven't, you wonder why.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, so she's definitely one of my... I could watch this movie just to, skip from her, go from one of her scenes to the next scene to the next scene to the next scene. I think she's fantastic. And
her entrance is just so good because when she's there and she cries out for him, and he goes to alert, right, game face on. It's on now, where he's been completely in control. This is his equal entering the arena.
Ouch! As you were.
Angelo!
Sophia, honey, you're the first person I've wanted to see today. Belle.
Love it.
And everybody knows it. And the music was always kind of like supporting her and going along with her. Like her lines kind of line up with the beats and the music in this way.
Really? Yeah. Lovely.
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph! My baby!
Yeah, she's the queen of the house, and everybody knows it.
I think my favorite thing about her, though, is that this movie takes place over the span of about 4 hours. And every time she's on screen, she's dressed in a different, more elaborate dress. And it's fantastic.
Yes. When she says she's going to go dress for lunch and she comes, I can't even remember which fantastic outfit she's wearing, but you're like, if that's what she wears for lunch, I want to see what she wears for dinner.
Right?
Yeah, the glamorous red gown that she ends up in. It's amazing. For Tim Curry and Marissa Tomei, I love their first scene together where they're having tea. And there's no words for most of the thing, and it's just these long looks at each other. It's already been set up a little bit by Little Anthony saying, "Oh, a man who deals with language and he can't find the words," but then they actually play into that whole idea.
They're so wonderfully awkward, but it's not necessarily romantically awkward. It's because neither of them knows exactly what they're doing there, I think.
Yeah.
It's seventh grade crush awkward when all of your friends have told you that the boy likes you, and all of the boy's friends have told you that the girl likes you, and so you're sitting there going, "Do I like you?" don't know if I like
Don't
you.
say anything to break the spell.
So Mandi already mentioned Mark Metcalf, but he's not the only face we recognize in The Bankers, because William Atherton is there too, who played Walter Peck in Ghostbusters.
Yes,
And so
of course he does. And he's
we have
also our villain from Die Hard. No, he's not the villain in Die Hard. He's the reporter schmuck in Die Hard.
I was like, no, wait a minute. Alan Rickman was the
Yeah.
villain in Die Hard.
But yeah, he always plays this certainly antagonist role,
yeah, just like
but just weaselly and in it for himself.
Oh, weaselly is the perfect word.
mm-hmm. I always flash on Bill Murray saying,
Everything was fine with our system until the power grid was shut off by Dickless here.
They caused an explosion.
Is this true?
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
Yeah.
every time I see his face,
Nice.
poor man. Anyway, I mean, Dr. Poole we've talked about enough, probably.
He does steal the film somewhat. It is easy
Yeah.
to do.
This thing with the bags, we talked about this a little bit. I love a good setup and payoff, and this film just has I don't know, it's the bags, like that's I guess the main bit of this. But there's also this thing that Snaps does to Anthony, where he tells him that the Finucci brothers are his hitmen, and Anthony totally believes him.
And who are they?
You don't recognize the Finucci's? Sicilians, the most vicious contract killers in the country.
And so but it's set up like kind of perfectly throughout the up to that moment where the Finucci brothers walk in. They're like, oh yeah, we've hit the big time now because this dead man in this newspaper clipping is wearing our suit. And they show Snaps this. And it just kind of goes on from there, like beat for beat, like setting this up so that by the time the Finucci brothers are playing on the piano with Anthony, and then all of a sudden he realizes what he's doing and that there are two hitmen, people who think are hitmen on either side of him. And then he kind of like backs, like jumps away from the piano. And then they have this conversation about you treat it like it's a normal business because they've got another one to do at 11.
They've got to work weekends.
Yeah, and they've got to work weekends, but they don't like to do that because they're family men. And his eyes are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then they take out the newspaper clipping. I don't know, like that gets me every single time. I just sit there and laugh and laugh and laugh at that. So,
and when we get through with you, nobody's going to recognize you.
All the little like movements behind like the character motivations or whatever, in a way it's all about like kind of this like power and respectability of who has it and who, like, how can we get it.
There's so many interactions, and particularly it's a chance for this supporting cast to show off some of their best things. So you've got two really good character actors here, particularly Harry Shearer.
Yes.
Just to have lots of exactly the jokes you're pointing out, these little moments with them. What's the one earlier where he says,
Oh, we make you look like a banker. Take off your pants.
Yes.
it's really easy. And these days, it's an incredibly obvious joke because everyone has a dig at bankers these days. But it's simple and it's nice and it works in the moment, both as a joke and to keep the plot moving. It doesn't stand out as they wrote that just for the gag.
Yeah,
Like
it all just kind of fits in and you don't even realize what's happening, and then all of a sudden, boom. And that's the kind of stuff that it just tickles me. And it tickles me every time, even though I know it's coming. So that I quite enjoy. And then, of course, there's Snaps disarming Connie throughout the film.
Yeah.
Until he's disarming him of his turkey leg and pointing it at us.
And the fact that that's so instinctual to take what he thinks is a
I mean,
gun and aim it at
It's
Anthony.
not the basic shape. And he's holding it like a gun.
Yeah.
And I think this is a different scene, like a somewhat later scene, but he comes back in with the turkey leg after Snaps has taken it and pointed it at Anthony and then like given it back to him in disgust. And he comes back in with it. I know it, and Snaps hands him the bag, one of the bags that he's supposed to watch. And so he takes the turkey leg and sticks it in soup, like in his inside pocket on his suit.
Back in the holster.
And you're like,
just so many little moments. It's so good.
And I think that's why I can watch this 3 times in not too long and still still being used by.
Nice.
So anyway, okay, so I'll stop gushing now. What about you guys?
Mandy, what were some of the things that you laughed at that you particularly enjoyed from it?
I don't think I can narrow them down to my favorite thing, so I'll just, give you a couple of things that were really, really good.
Yeah.
The claymation opera at the beginning, which had nothing to do with the plot at all, was amazing. I really liked the little clay dude. He was cute. It was great. I enjoyed it. I was confused by it because I didn't understand why we were suddenly watching a little clay dude sing an opera, but it was awesome. We've already talked about Anthony's Moxie, which is fantastic. Buttle is totally a thing.
Go Buttle.
And I'm so excited about it. You're a butler now. Buttle. This is like the third movie now where we've had that word show up, and I'm really excited about that because it's a real thing.
What were the other? Clue?
Clue was one, and it was the Indiana Jones movie, Last Crusade.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, both of those had Buttle in it, and they both delighted me to no end. It was fantastic. One thing that I didn't mention before when we were talking about Marissa Tomei is that I think that her acting skills in this were actually really incredible because, I mean, it's really bad acting, but I think to act that bad, you have to be a really good actor.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to make it that bad. I mean, because it was bad on purpose. Like, it was obvious. And so I feel like she did a really good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's moments where she's screaming and crying, and you're looking at her going, shut up. And then, like,
Right.
she leaves the room or, like, her point is made, and she just stops.
Yes.
And, like, her face. So,
Yes.
like, it's so deadpan.
So I hate that she was nominated for a Razzie for it because it was all done very intentionally, I think. Like, it wasn't actually bad acting. But that's just me.
I feel like maybe the critics scene or whatever, like, because critics didn't like this movie either. And I just wonder, like, did they not get it or not see what, like, they obviously didn't see what we're seeing somehow, or it didn't.
Yeah, was it just too much seeing Stallone trying to pull off something like
And
this?
they weren't.
Comedies never do well with critics.
Yeah,
So.
that's true. But it's also interesting. This was also about the time when Arnold Schwarzenegger was doing a similar thing. Because I think this was about in the period when Kindergarten Cop and Twins and the one where he's pregnant were made.
Junior.
I think, if I'm not completely mistaken. And so, like, maybe people just saw Stallone doing this and were like, oh, he's trying to Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, the film he had out before this is Kindergarten Cop. This year he released Terminator 2. The film after this is Last Action Hero. So, yeah.
Okay. And then my last favorite thing, and this one's pretty great. Matthew, I'm surprised you didn't note this down because you are a sucker for a fourth wall break. And Sylvester Stallone breaks the fourth wall in this. And I was watching it and I was like, he just broke the fourth wall. And I had to rewind it and watch it again. And I was like, that is awesome. And I loved it. And you noticed it, right?
It's wonderful because he does it twice.
Oh, he did it twice? I don't think I caught the second time.
He does it. I think you're referring to when Connie is just the most stupid person in the world.
How did 50 grand change your underwear? That's what I'm asking you. Maybe it was a miracle. You know, like the loaves and the fishes.
He does it at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah, the final slap from his father.
Oh.
He sits back down. He just looks at the camera like, okay, we're in this together.
Well, see, I wasn't really invested in the movie yet at that point because I was still like, this is the most melodramatic, awful death scene I've ever seen in my life. And I was still trying. I didn't know what the movie was about yet at that point. So, yeah, I missed that one. That's great.
I'm trying to remember. Is it Charlton Heston as his father?
No, it's Douglas.
Kirk Douglas. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, this film has an amazing cast. It's ridiculous. We've dwelt a little bit on the scene, the introduction to Marissa Tomei, where she's in her sleeping things, her robe.
Sleeping things.
Clothes.
Her teddy, maybe? Anyway, but it's probably my favourite scene, but particularly the length of time she spends hiding Lady Chatterley's lover, the book, then putting out the cigarette, having some coke, then going and turning off the rock and roll, and then doing this dramatic flourish to let her father enter.
Yes.
It takes so long, and it's ridiculous, because he'd be like, no, you need to come and open the door now. But she's just, I need to make sure all of my indiscretion is hidden. But I adore, it's probably my favourite line in the whole thing, Stallone's line of,
It's the music you kids listen to today. Bing Crosby, Cab Calloway. Don't think I haven't heard the lyrics to Minnie the Moocher.
And it's perfect as because he's probably from the late 1800s he was born, so he is looking down on this as kids today, terrible music. But I love that because Minnie the Moocher is a wonderful song. But yes, the lyrics of it are a bit racy.
She messed around with a bloke named Smokey. She loved him though he was cokey. He took her down to Chinatown and he showed her how to kick the gong around.
Well, is there anything else that we need to discuss about Oscar?
I can tell you why I think the little opera interlude with the credits fits the plot of the movie a little bit. It doesn't actually follow the plot, but I think it tells us a little bit about the energy of the movie.
Okay.
So this song, which I've known all my life, but that's mostly from Bugs Bunny cartoons, and then at some point this movie. And I'm not a big opera person. I don't know that much about it actually, but this song, it's an aria from The Barber of Seville, which was an opera by Rossini, and it's called Largo. And sorry, any person who knows opera who's listening to this, I'm sorry. Largo al Factotum, which is basically, it's the song that plays as this character, Figaro, comes into town, and he's the factotum, or was the factotum for this, I don't know, duke or count or somebody important, and now he's the barber in the town. But basically, everybody wants him. Everybody needs something from him. And he's singing the song about how he does everything and takes care of everything, and with great quality. And then basically, I don't know, I'm trying to think, there's this one line, everybody asks for me, everybody wants me. The women, the men, the young, the old, doesn't matter. He's the most important person. And then that's basically what we see what happens over the course of this morning to Snaps. And also in a little bit of way, Aldo. And so it just kind of sets that up in a
Yeah, it's such an energetic piece, and it's used all through the thing for the running up the stairs, the running down the stairs. Yep. It really does start it off with quite a pace to it.
Yeah, and I mean it also this and then like what it does with it kind of emphasizes some of these dialogue moments with Sophia and some of the others, and it's just it's this kind of this energy to it, and I think it also maybe places this movie in this tradition, like this commedia dell'arte tradition of craziness, but you know what to expect from it a little bit. Like it's got these beats that even if you don't know what's going to happen, you know what's going to happen. Like what you were saying, Mandi, with what he's going to talk about, like when Anthony is proposing, it's going to be the daughter. And I think it all kind of comes from this tradition that we don't like. We know it, but we don't. We know it, but we don't know we know it. And so I just think this music with the soundtrack kind of just kind of streamlines us all.
Yeah, the mistaken identity and the people running from room to room. It is very like that style of opera and that style of play. It's lovely. Oh, it's such a good film.
It just makes you feel like you know it and it knows you.
I don't have anything to recommend after this. Like you said, Mandi, it's hard to define this in terms of other films. And this is very much a follow-up to some of the other farcical sort of things we've seen so far.
This is part of your Tim Curry run.
Yeah.
This is our Tim Curry trifecta, I think.
Yeah.
What about you, Carrie? Do you have any recommendations to add to my list?
This movie made me think of a few others, but I thought of it because of this character Snaps. He's just kind of in over his head and all this stuff is happening around him and you're just kind of following along. Have you ever seen Dave?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's a good film.
I love that film.
Yes, that is one I would recommend.
It doesn't have anything to do
and actually
with this
in this
so much,
style.
but it is a little bit in the style. And it's also kind of maybe a feel-good movie for our times. What we all hope is going to happen, I don't know. Anyway, it's a movie about mistaken identity and the president of the United States. And it's by Ivan Reitman. And it has Kevin Kline and Sigourney Weaver in it. And I just absolutely love that movie. So that'll be my recommendation.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I think that's one that could be added to the list. Mostly because I'd like to see it again. I haven't seen it in years. It's a great film.
That one I do have on DVD.
Nice. So we've had some great listener feedback over the last few weeks to some of our recent releases. Elizabeth Arnold at eBetharama said, having watched Pretty in Pink, finally listening to our episode, chose Pretty in Pink to dive in and cannot believe that Mandi likes Blaine.
What can I say? I like what I like.
Blaine?
That's an appliance.
We also heard from Gypsy Book Nerd about the last Doctor Who episode, that she adores Eleven's theme as well, which is apt on Stranger Things 2 weekend.
I was just thinking,
yes.
When were you guys talking about Stranger Things?
Oh, now I need to go find out if the Duffer Brothers gave 11 a theme.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, we had Devin at Snorker on Twitter, also about Doctor Who. In response to Matthew's wonderful joke in our last Doctor Who episode, a Time Lord. Matthew, this joke makes me want to die a little. Ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ha ha.
In a good way, Ovs.
You keep telling yourself that.
It was a good joke. My jokes are nothing but the best for this podcast.
Okay.
Get all your best jokes. Sorry for the rest of your people in your life.
All right. Well, if you'd like to have your thoughts featured in this segment, you can use the hashtag PCDeprived on Twitter. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Eloquent Gushing. You can also email us using podcast@eloquentgushing.com, or you can leave us a voice message at speakpipe.com/eloquentgushing. You can find each of us on Twitter. I'm at Mandi K.
And I'm at Matthew Vose. Carrie, it's been a delight having you. Thank you so much for helping me make Mandi watch Oscar. I'm amazed someone else has seen this film and loves it as much.
I hope the team grows.
Where can people find you online?
I'm at We Do Words on Twitter, and that's words with a Z or a Z if you prefer. I go both ways on that, so.
Well, yeah, considering where you live, it's probably a Z. Pop Culturally Deprived is 100% funded by listeners like you through our Patreon page. Anything you can give will give you access to exclusive content and helps to support the network and our other shows. To find out more, visit patreon.com/eloquentgushing. And don't forget to visit our homepage, eloquentgushing.com. We've given it a bit of a refresh, and you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter, which has all the latest news and announcements.
We'll be back next week with another episode of Pop Culturally Deprived, where we'll talk about Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, with Jen from the podcast A Command of Her Own. Until next time, I'm Mandi K.
And I'm off to Appalachia to study regional colloquialisms among the coal mining community. Pop Culturally Deprived is an Eloquent Gushing production. For more information, go to eloquentgushing.com or find us on Twitter at eloquentgushing.